Hello everybody, welcome to the patch 13.3 rundown for amateur play. My name is Quinn, and today I'll be using my system of predictive criteria that I've been developing to help me assess the probable impact of the patch on all levels of amateur competition, with a particular focus on the underserved, platinum, and below. Now, keep in mind that although each change will have an impact on the power level of a champion, we're mostly looking at systemic changes and very major champion changes. Otherwise, even when a champion will have like a small dip in win rate in solo queue, we may be assessing them as virtually unchanged in amateur play, because at the end of the day, you should try to play your comfort as often as possible in lower levels of play. And just like small damage nerfs and something like that shouldn't be changing that, right? If you're watching this roughly a week after release, please check the comments below as I reflect on the patch and just make sure that everything I said was accurate. And sometimes small details are overlooked, so just don't take my opinions as gospel. Use them to like guide your own strategic decisions from patch to patch, right? How's everyone doing? I got my YouTube intro out of the way. I think it was kind of sloppy, but it's okay. I'm alive. I'm back. I was in the editing dungeon trying to get this one done, you know? This one was kind of... It took a long time. It took a long time. So. I've heard this is kind of a big patch. I have really not had a chance to look at it, like, at all. I don't know what's coming. Although I guess there's a few things here and there that I've glanced at from Twitter. Now that I look at Annie being here. There's some stuff that was supposed to come in 13.2 that didn't come because it was 13.1b instead and implemented weirdly, but alas, right? Okay, so starting with Aurelion Sol, I'm not going to go into depth. I've just put out Day 1 Aurelion Sol, my guide, how to get started with him. I don't tend to make, like, power assessments on brand new champions, in the guide at least, but like I do have a strong feeling that if we can bypass Aurelion Sol's vulnerable, volatile laning, that he's just going to be an absolute monster, right? Like, I think he definitely appears to be very high power, and we're going to have to try to figure out like what exactly his place in the game is, although I think we have a pretty good start from that video. Please check it out if you haven't, right? Amumu. Let me actually get my predictors pulled up. It's been a bit. I haven't had time to work with them lately. Okay. Amumu. So Amumu, they say he's too strong in both jungle and supports, and even so, like jungle, it still kind of makes me giggle. It's like, how can Amumu possibly be too good in jungle, right? So they are increasing Amumu's Q cost by 5, and they are... Excuse me for a moment. Do not disturb turned on. Okay. So they are increasing Amumu's Q cost by 5, and they are decreasing his E damage by 15 at rank 1, but it scales up to +5 at rank 5. And so the intention here is clearly to reduce his ability to continually all-in you in bot lane, and it's to slow his early clear speed. Now, Jungle Amumu is not something that I've ever really properly explored. I just kind of left it at, oh, it's clear, super unhealthy, and very exploitable. Which actually, now that I think about it, makes him very good in, like, Platinum and below, where junglers don't tend to invade without very obvious prio. Interesting. So, I mean, historically, when Amumu's mana costs have gone up, I really don't think it made a significant difference. Like, when you think back to, I think it was, like, Season 11 Worlds, where Amumu got picked up a lot for the first time, and then got dropped, and then got nerfed. I don't believe that Amumu's Q cost had anything to do with the reason that he got dropped in that season. So I, just from, like, historical experience with this, how much mana does Amumu need to all-in you truly, and how often is he all-inning you? Like, it's really, at most, twice in a laning sequence, right? As long as he's actually not missing his Qs spontaneously, right? So if Amumu is playing properly and, like, exerting pressure correctly, I don't think this makes any significant difference, and because this is a clear speed nerf, I don't think that matters for most lower levels of play at all, and I would just, like, At the end of the day, I don't know enough about Jungle Amumu to like really. Okay, let me think then. Let me think. Right now, guys, I'm just kind of recovering from everything. Right. I Hailfire. We'll diff. Well, that's exactly what happened to Cassante as well. And I know we have to kind of factor in, like, the little bit of hotfix buff that he got for no reason and the additional, like, little nerf, but, like, none of them were too impactful, so I really don't attribute that to Cassante's changes, right? I think Aurelion Sol will, once he's settled in, be very, very, very strong. That's what I'm expecting. Okay, but just, like, TLDR, Amumu doesn't try to all-in you too frequently in lane. It's like at most twice per sequence, and so I genuinely don't think that mana nerfs really affect him that much, especially when they're this minor. It's like plus 10 in his entire combo, right? And then with Tantrum, like I know it's eventually scaling up. I assume this is his first max in the jungle, or is it W? Is it W or E? I guess I actually have to find out, don't I? It is E, okay. And I haven't seriously looked into a Amumu jungle and... Oh my god, this man has a 55% win rate. I didn't know he had a 55% win rate in solo queue. Oh my goodness. Okay, yeah, I understand why they're nerfing Amumu now. So clearly I've been a bit out of the loop with Amumu Jungle's power level because I just look at him and say like, haha, he's susceptible to invades, but clearly that does not matter. And if that does not matter, is reducing his clear speed in an elo where clear speed doesn't matter going to make a difference? No. So at the end of the day, if this doesn't dramatically affect support, if this doesn't dramatically affect plat minus jungle, and if he genuinely isn't like prevalent a lot in high level jungle anyway, expectation is like no change on Amumu at all, not even a little bit. I guess that's why he got locked in by FlyQuest, huh? I guess that's it. That is a joke. That's very funny. Hi, Karibo. It's good to see you again. I'm back. I'm alive. I'm out of my editing dungeon. Yeah. Amumu is like the mini Warden's Mail champ. I remember. This champ's funny. Oh, it's why we used to run him against Zeri when it still worked that way. Right. Okay, Annie. Annie is getting... I read this on Twitter a while ago. Annie is getting, like, a bunch of quality of life changes. So what are they doing to her? Annie will now spawn with her passive fully charged on game start and when she respawns. That's huge for level 1 implications, right? Shield strength is going up at level 1 and the AP ratio is going up dramatically. The cooldown is going down. The retaliation magic damage is going up at all ranks with an increase in AP ratio. When Molten Shield is active, enemies whose basic attacks hit the shield, that's how it used to work. Enemies whose basic attacks and spells, wow! But it only inflicts damage against opponents once per target per shield, and Tibbers' shield counts as a new shield. Okay. Tibbers' health now has an AP ratio. Ooh! Tibbers' resistances now have a small AP ratio. Tibbers' move speed now scales with level, which is big because, like, Daisy is still faster than this at rank 1. Right. Okay, that's a bunch of changes to Annie. That's a lot of quality of life. So let's take this one step at a time, right? None of this is really Annie's damage. It's only, like... Yeah, because now even though the shield damage appears stronger and is easier to proc and is stronger in lane, the opportunity to proc it multiple times is gone, but realistically, how many times with this shield value, especially since you're usually leveling it last, how many times are you realistically procking it more than once, right? So this, in most situations, is just a damage increase, right? Lower cooldown. So we have to talk about several things. We have to talk about regular Burst Mage Annie. We have to talk about Rylai's Leandry's Annie. And we have to talk about Support Annie. Okay? This also buffs Support Annie. This change here, you can enter lane and you don't have to stack your Q. and you do have the opportunity to just take a trade at earlier levels and, like, use your level 2. Annie can use her level 2 if she's able to use her auto attack range. So that's immediately power impacting for Annie support. Burst Mage Annie is not getting any love whatsoever here. Like, okay, realistically, there's like a tiny bit of love, but the retaliation magic damage of Molten Shield is not part of her combo. And Burst Mage Annie is definitely the style that struggles the most in a post-durability update world. And that is definitely kind of challenging. Tibbers surviving noticeably longer because his health now has a 75% AP ratio, and Tibbers reflecting more damage because he's like one of the only sources of double procs of Molten Shield. That actually implies that Rylai's Leandry Annie is just like genuinely strong. And yeah, as we're saying in the chat, like Tibbers is a very strong pet with a lot of AP scalings. He's exerting a lot of threat even post-burst combo, right? So, noticeably, this doesn't do anything for... I shouldn't say that. I was about to say, like, this wouldn't appear to do very much for laning, but, like, just this alone against mages makes Annie, like, more threatening in every matchup. This is actually, like, a tremendous swing against spells now. You fire a spell at Annie, and not only is she not taking as much damage, but, like, you are just taking the retaliation damage on, like, your Syndra Q or something like that, right? On Syndra Q. That's insane. Stunted Trans F, thank you so much for the follow. Oh, you... No, never mind, sorry. I read something incorrectly. Thank you so much for the follow, I really appreciate it. Hope you enjoy your time with us. Twice if you hit, yay, if you clump up. Okay. So yeah, the TLDR of this one is Annie at level 1 is more threatening. Annie support actually has better opportunities to trade, and with greater shield values and a shorter cooldown may be worth looking into again, right? Annie mid lane, the burst builds are not gaining a lot of power at all, but the Rylai's Leandry's builds are gaining a lot. Like, Tibbers survives a lot longer, the Molten Shield does more, her laning against mages is a lot more capable, so even though she's still kind of range limited, it, like, just using Tibbers primarily gives her more reach. I mean, this looks like a very, very genuine boost of power to Annie. I just don't know if the time to come truly online is something we value. Like, because, no, I guess you can actually... No, if Tibbers is, like, beating you to death... If Tibbers is beating you to death, surely Rylai's Rush is okay, no? Either way, I'm not going to waste my time speculating on, like, everything. My gut instinct says, this is insane. A lot of good properties here. And I really do want to reassess Annie in both of her primary roles, because I think, like, we're actually going to find value in running Annie again. Especially now that Tibbers doesn't just get deleted, so, like, you can't lose the entire premise of your build, right? The speed for Tibbers is also... Okay, yeah, let's actually check that too, right? Is the Enrage a percentage? 100% bonus. And this is all base movement speed? Nice. Nice. No. Yeah. Okay. Jarvan the Fourth. Okay, so Jarvan... I'm not even going to read their context. The big problem with Jarvan is that his builds in Season 13 suck. They're so bad. Jarvan, like, had a place in Season 12, even post-durability update, because, like, he had pure tank builds that actually outputted meaningful damage, and that made him threatening. He had access to Chem Tank, he had access to Sunfire, and that was all appealing. But, like, now what has he got for tank itemization? Like, you're not gaining value as Jarvan from Jack Show necessarily, especially as a rush, because like you are a champion who has to output some damage to justify your existence. So it looks like what they're trying to do, +2 base armor, shorter cooldown on Aegis, an 80% bonus AD ratio on the shield, and a shorter duration. So they're trying to reward Jarvan with more durability for opting into more damage to account for the current landscape of the game, right? And I guess Jarvan would be like one of the only champions in the universe who like actually kind of likes Gore Drinker's new mythic passive. That's not a factor. No, that's not a factor because you're like a 2-item champion at most. Well, I durability on its own is not a boon, right? Durability is not output, durability is a gate. And so Jarvan receiving more durability would be power impacting if it would make him more able to provide output, right? It would make him more able to provide additional CC, and it would make him more able to provide additional damage. And there is an argument to be made for this, like, actually keeping Jarvan healthy enough for a more reliable second or even a third rotation. But at the same time, like... Whoops, not... Okay. At the end of the day, that is, like, a plus... Like, just rounding, like, 45 shield, something like that, on his Gore Drinker. I think this looks greater than it is. And the funniest possible outcome is lethality Jarvan becoming a bigger problem. That's the funniest possible outcome, and that's actually like the most likely outcome from this change, is lethality Jarvan is the one that gets buffed the most. But for general play Jarvan, I wouldn't read too deeply into this. We should probably assess this right now. Yeah, one sec. Okay. Let me just plug this into the calculator. Base HP is 640, and that is unchanged. HP per level is 104, and that is unchanged. Base armor is going from 34 to 36. And his armor per level is staying at 4.8. Like, it's plus 25 effective HP at level 11. It's such a marginal change on base stats alone. And so I would not get misled by this. I don't think it is a significant buff to Jarvan at all. Right. Cassante is getting a big suite of nerfs. He is gaining more HP, like some more health growth. In exchange, the knock-up duration on Q3 is noticeably shorter, and the stun duration is shorter. So this is the part that's affected by tenacity and the part that isn't. The minimum stun duration of Pathmaker, so just the tap Ws, that's lower, and the resistances lost are huge. Now, Tofo strikes, like, the slow isn't factored in. This is really just a nerf that's intended to hit all-out state, where you have less CC when you're all-out. You're noticeably squishier when you're all-out, and truthfully, I don't think this makes a very significant difference, like the minimum stun duration on Pathmaker. I do think Cassante is closer to balanced than people would think even prior to these changes. The big problem is just like when he goes all out, he is shockingly unkillable. I think because he's going to become noticeably squishier, we should probably see a Cassante that's a lot more in lines with my predictions in day one Cassante, where he is absolutely like not the kind of champion you just blind pick because he's an overwhelming stat stick that wins. He's the kind of champion that you pick because you value his defensive utility as a proper tank, and then can transition him into all-out later in the fight, right? That's what I thought Cassante would be. I did not think he would be just pick him, kill everybody. That was shocking. Right. So, Cassante's win rate is low in lower levels of play. You need to be able to capitalize him properly, and then he's definitely more along the lines of a control champion if he's not just an overwhelming murder you stat stick. I would imagine that if you played around him as a carry and, like, actually had some tools to enable him, he's still going to be okay, like, even though he's squishier when all out, like, you just probably have to provide a little more for him and help him. He'll be, like, a little less self-sufficient if he's just forcing all outs, and I think that's completely fine, right? Again, I think Cassante is a cool champion, and I do not think you should overreact to these changes whatsoever. It's just since the counterplay to him has developed and we know favorable matchups now, I think the era of blind pick Cassante has probably ended. But please treat him as a completely reasonable, good champion who is a little bit devalued and platinum minus off of mechanical execution and his, like, defensive nature. The prediction within the community there is that the only thing they'll change is he'll more heavily prioritize gargoyles. That could make sense. I can see that for sure. Oh, and if you're a solo queue... No, but that also does lead us to another important conclusion, right? If you're a solo queue Cassante player, get good. You'll be able to pilot your champion if you're good at him. Right? So I guess we can leave it at that, right? I would not overreact to this change at all. Okay, Kassadin, who we just saw in the last patch, we saw a change that I predicted would not meaningfully affect his power, and it didn't. So, what's happening now? Yeah, Kassadin continues to cast a win. So now they're trying to hammer home their nerf from the previous patch. And if you remember, 13.1b targeted Kassadin's E at rank 5, reducing the cooldown by 4 seconds. This property mitigated some of the impact of the nerf, and then on top of that, at rank 1, they're reducing its damage, but it scales back up to the normal. So they're just trying to make Kassadin more vulnerable early, but this is his first max anyway, right? Riftwalk, base damage is down by 10 at all ranks, and the bonus damage per stack is also down by 5 at all ranks. So they're saying Kassadin does too much damage. And they're saying Kassadin does too much damage too consistently. Again, before we react too harshly to this, he is a champion who is very, very, very well supported by systems. And he's a champion who at lower levels of play is allowed to scale in inappropriate windows, even if he's not necessarily allowed to trade back as effectively as you think, right? I just need to figure out his max stacks because that's not something I know off the top of my head. Stacking up to 4 times. So he's losing 30 damage per fully stacked Riftwalk. He's losing between 10 to 30 damage per Riftwalk at level 6 at all ranks. I'm saying at level 16. No, he's losing between 10 to 30 damage on every Riftwalk. Okay. I guess now this begs the question, do we even necessarily consider Kassadin like a pure burst champion? I know that's a weird question, but, like, do we actually consider Kassadin to be a pure burst? I know what makes him, like, completely overwhelming is his ability. Like, he hops in, dumps his kit on you with, like, a double Riftwalk combo, blinks out, but, like, can we argue that when Kassadin is online, like, the Riftwalk cooldown is good enough? We said last week that, like, Kassadin doesn't need every Force Pulse in the known universe because his Riftwalk is so overwhelming. I guess with that in mind, like, he now is getting far fewer Force Pulses. He's now getting noticeably fewer Force Pulses in late-game teamfights. But the thing that meant he didn't care about this was a super high damage Rift Walk, which is losing up to 30 damage. You know, he kind of is. No, we do have to consider him a burst champion, right? We do have to consider... And now I look at Twitch chat and see that you guys are echoing like the same idea. Okay. But a burst champion losing 30 is irrelevant by level 16. It's relevant at level 6. And you're not actually losing 30 at level 6 because you're not getting your fully stacked ultimate that early in the game, in most cases, right? Okay, so this does actually slow down Kassadin's pattern like a reasonable amount, and it does kind of like, you know, you actually start to view Kassadin like a little more as a proper assassin, rather than just like, you know, he actually probably does have to disengage like slightly longer, actually wait for some cooldowns, actually wait for some more vulnerable windows. No, so I think, while I don't think that the damage reduction of Rift Walk is very significant for the point of the game where Kassadin would care too much about its damage, I don't think that this is significant at levels of play where Kassadin is just allowed to scale inappropriately and he doesn't need to trade back as much. I do think that these together, on top of this trying to hammer home the last nerf from the last patch, actually should make Kassadin like less of an omnipresent threat in drafts, and probably does expose like some more mage opportunities because he is not quite as scary. Because like whenever we have nerfs targeting two or three aspects of a champion at once, those are usually nerfs that are power impacting. Like we saw Aatrox's nerfs, we saw Orianna's buffs affecting multiple aspects of a champion all at once. I would imagine that Kassadin does become less of an omnipresent threat, although because he's so well supported systematically, I don't expect him to fully go away at all, right? He'll survive the changes. He'll survive the changes for sure. He'll be completely fine. Though we maybe get like a little bit more selective on our pick conditions, right? He's still strong. Yeah, of course he's still strong. I just my predictors say we have to care about double taps like this. You still don't like B3 Asindra. You still don't like B3 these weak scaling mages, right? Okay, actually, hold on. Let me reconclude, shall we? So yeah, basically, in isolation, I don't think this matters much at all. Because by the point of the game where Kassadin's like fully online and caring about this damage, 30 burst damage doesn't matter. I don't think this in isolation matters because at most levels of play, Kassadin gets more of a free ride than you would expect and doesn't need to be trading back. This does hammer home his nerfs from the last patch where his E is coming back up. And, you know, in conjunction with the Rift Walk, it's like, okay, Kassadin's not killing you as egregiously. And my predictors would say that, like, because we have a champion receiving nerfs to multiple aspects of his gameplay that are interacting, like the fact that this nerf would not be as bad if this were unaffected, like, that does tell us that we have to care a little bit about the nerf, but Kassadin is so well supported systematically that, like, literal worst case scenario, I think he just becomes, like, slightly less of an omnipresent threat in some drafts, and, like, there's no way this champion doesn't remain, like, at minimum, reasonably strong. Even if you have to be a little bit more careful with picking him because, like, he's a little more exposed on some trades or a little less explosive in the late game, it's still a 16 Kassadin, right? Prisma, what am I clicking? Okay, this is copyrighted. It's... Breaking Bad clips. Why am I blue? I'm blue now. Kale. Okay. Before I dive into Kale, let's figure out what happened to Kale. that really it? Huh? 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 Oh, that's right. Okay, never mind. I remember. So what happened to Kale? Kale got half of the durability update rolled back. Kale did not get all of her durability update stats. And every champion who did not get all of their durability update stats, like Senna, Kale, we saw them fall off in popularity and power, right? They just are noticeably squishier than everybody else. So basically, we had a state of Kale like immediately on 12-10 where it's like, wow, this champion's broken as hell, right? This champion is absolutely broken. And mid lane was the safest place for her, but now this matters. Like, top lane Kale is just not as good because she's a lot more exposed. So that's what happened to Kale. Like, I think, like, the last time we saw her, her late game was reasonably strong, but her laning was really, really, really safe, and that was the problem. And then they made her laning not safe, and then because she is literally the worst champion in the game, in the early game, we just stopped valuing her highly, right? So they're giving her more scaling. Does that solve that mid lane problem? No. Does that solve, like, a top lane phase problems? No. Are tanks that Kale can easily beat up, like, prominent in the meta right now? I mean, like, a little more than before, but still, no. So we have a DPS buff to a DPS champion, which we would typically not change our pick conditions for. And, movement speed is a skill-expressive stat. That matters. I just cannot foresee any Kale pick conditions changing, predominantly because I still do view her scaled state as worth it more than a lot of other people do. So I look at this set of changes and I'm just thoroughly whelmed, and I don't think we change anything with how we strategize around Kale. Right. The movement speed specifically, eventually, yeah, I mean, it makes you, like, you're allowed to kite more effectively, but, like, Exalted, too, right? Exalted, I don't really care. It's Exalted. Where is it? Oh, sorry, level 1, but it's max stacks level 1. Max stacks, like, this isn't, it's 2% bonus. I don't care. It's 2% bonus. I really don't care. 2% is such a negligible amount. It's like to look at a change and say, oh, this changes everything. But so I think the trap that you're falling into, Hailfire, is you are talking about how the property is good, but not how the property is better. And how the property is not significantly better enough to matter strategically, right? It does make the difference, like 2%. Even through W? Like, you're only a few movement speed faster. Wait, are you talking about, like... We have a very strong fundamental difference in opinion about the value of negligible amounts of movement speed. I should not say negligible if I'm trying to see your perspective. That's wrong. We have a fundamental difference in opinion about the value of, like, tiny amounts of movement speed. I guess the 5 base does matter in some... The 5 base matters when you're chasing people down. I have only ever personally observed the value of, like, 5 base offensively, not defensively. Right. I'm establishing a anchor. I'm establishing, like, a point to work off of. No, this is not in my area of expertise one bit. Okay, so... correct me if I'm wrong. Your argument is that this 2% movement speed makes a significant difference in protecting yourself from damage in some early matchups? At about level 6. It's about level 6 where with tier 2 boots, she's untouchable. I struggle to see how she would be untouchable when this comes online after a... Wait, hang on, am I stupid? Oh my god, I'm stupid! I am stupid! I have played Kale! How did I possibly think she still got her range at level 11? I play Kale sometimes. Like, I'm fucking stupid, guys. I'm a moron. Oh my god, that change happened like 3 years ago. Oh. Yeah, what am I doing? Okay. Okay. Although, okay, but the conversation that I just had with chat also did point out that, like, at level 6, if you can survive until 6, because you're a champion that rushes tier 2 boots, which I wasn't aware of, having your ranged form at level 6, like, actually means that you are potentially avoiding more damage than we would believe. Excuse me. I just completely ruined that take. Okay, but I will add a little disclaimer here. The conversation that I just had with chat implies that I might have been overlooking something, because the Kale players are saying your level 6 spike with tier 2 boots, when you become ranged, this makes a greater difference in avoiding damage than I would think, and, like, apparently there is, like, some defensive breakpoint that this might hit, in which case, top lane Kale would be shielded from some of her matchups, and maybe that means some pick conditions change for competitive, right? So, possibly I'm underrating this, but my gut instinct still says we don't change our conditions too much, but this goes on the watch list. Kayn, Shadow Assassin damage increased, and the QAD scaling increased. So, yeah, I think both forms of Kayn are not amazing. Rost keeps getting hit as collateral in, like, systemic changes. The fighter item changes were definitely not good for him because he was absolutely an Omnivamp plus pen enjoyer. Lethality Rost got nerfed a while ago. What was the exact change? Ah, yeah, here it was. So, yeah, no, 12-18 Lethality Rost got hit a lot. I genuinely thought this would, like, severely nerf Kayn's competitive pick conditions. Where's my notes? Rost loses 3% max HP damage per target per Q per 100 AD, which translates to a very meaningful loss of healing in ideal Rost positions on lethality builds. We know if Rost can't heal enough, he is not useful, because Rost needs his durability to survive. He is not the type of champion that is willing to sacrifice himself for, like, one knockup. And so Rost got really weak after this. Because, like, what are you gonna do? You're gonna scale slowly with Gore Drinker, and now your fighter itemization has been nerfed again? Like, what are you doing? Like that was still the best option, but it doesn't feel great. And then Shadow Assassin Kayn, despite the fact that he has, like, kind of this niche as, like, kind of the poke assassin, which is weird, has also apparently been struggling, and you can see that just looking at Kayn's solo Q win rate, which is historically, like, very, very low, right? Which is currently very, very low. what they are doing, they are increasing Kane's Shadow Assassin bonus damage, up 5% at late levels. Okay, not bad at all. And the AD ratio of Reaping Slash is going up 15%, which doesn't affect Rost's damage, because he has separate Q values. So, this is a burst champion receiving big amounts of burst damage. Why do we have to consider this big amounts? Well, because this is percent bonus damage to, like, all of your damage, compounded by a 15% increase to a ratio. Now, in situations where Kane cannot fully assassinate, he still maintains his niche of being, like, that poke assassin, just jumping into walls, harassing you with W, like, whittling you down. It is moderately long cooldown, but that's not changed. But we will have reason to believe that Kane, Shadow Assassin, hits important burst breakpoints faster because, like, this appears to be a lot of damage, right? Realistically, 15% ratio. Let's see. Let's actually see exactly what's going to happen, right? Let's see exactly what's going to happen. Okay, so let's say Kane is level 10, right? Sorry, let's say Kane is level 11. 28, 20, oh, sorry. So it's 8% bonus damage on a level 11 Kane, plus 15% AD on Q. Oops. It means on specifically that spell, on specifically that spell, he's gaining, like, okay, on specifically that spell, he's only gaining 10 damage. Twice. He's gaining, like, 20 damage. When you look at it as an isolated cast there, an isolated Q cast, that's not enough to hit our burst breakpoints. When you factor in his other damage, because, again, he's contributing, it's an auto attack, a W, the R resets it and lets you do it again. This one Q won't be very much, but, like, over everything, his entire burst combo is absolutely crossing a threshold where we look at a burst champion and say that is a meaningful amount of damage that you are receiving, and so we do consider you noticeably buffed by this patch, right? You sure you got that right? Yeah, pretty sure. Well, I was just looking at BAD, right? Oh, and if I was just looking at BAD, with bonus AD, this is a bonus AD ratio, yeah? Yeah, it's a bonus AD ratio. So yeah, if he's got just his Prowlers, then yeah, he is only, on the 60 AD from that, he's only gaining, like, an additional plus 10 damage twice. He's gaining it twice. So, like, 20, because that did factor in this, where it was an increase of, what is adaptive? Okay, you want me to calculate, like, the like, you want me to calculate 15% of 580? Like, I guess it's 1080. 10.8 AD. $70.8 times 2 times point. I mean, it was an increase of. Oh, that's 1 point. Shit. Times 1.08. Okay, my bad. I was off by 3. Which doesn't change our conclusions whatsoever. Please let me finish my conclusions before coming in with the minutia. We are looking at, like, Kane on a reasonable, like, non-snowballed, on-curve state in the game, right? So, obviously, when you're, like, giga-fucking snowballed, this buff is going to be, like, ridiculous. It's going to be a lot more damage than that. If you are on curve and you are even with the rest of the game, that 1 Q is dealing, like, an additional 23-ish damage to its primary targets, but then it's like, well, yeah, Kane is not hitting just his Q, he's hitting his whole combo, and eventually, like, this whole thing impacts like the rest of his combo twice because he's probably ulting, right? The TLDR is this is well within our range of a change to a burst champion's damage that we view as significant. He is absolutely getting enough damage in his full combo, while also being a champion who has tools to whittle you down to get you in range of his combo, who has, like, very good access to capitalize on whatever his team is doing, and so I do think that if you can get Shadow Assassin Kayn online, this is a noticeably stronger assassin. And he's historically an assassin who, like, is stable, right? Now, the problem with Kayn is that you have to evolve him, and evolving him is hard, and he's weak before you've evolved him. But at chaotic levels of play, like Platinum and below, probably even Diamond and below, to be honest, like any level of amateur play that isn't, like, locked down, solid, consistent, Kayn is good. Like, Kayn does evolve reasonably often. So, yeah, I do think it is now time to reassess Shadow Assassin Kayn and just kind of check in on what's going on with him and maybe see if there are more pick conditions for him, because he is receiving, we've calculated, he is receiving a reasonable amount of damage for a burst champion. Whew. So we're good, we're happy with that. What's LeBlanc getting? Okay, Jesus. So, raise your hand if you hate, like, the state of LeBlanc. Poor LeBlanc. What a weirdo. Burst champion in a post-durability world, but at the same time, a weird poke champion, like a poke burst champion, who has, like, some utility that could be useful, right? And yeah, not liking her in general counts. To be useful, LeBlanc's, like, poke burst combo has to be high impact, and she has to be able to get it off repeatedly. But, like, she's not threatening without a bunch of them right now. And their solution was greater access to early Mimic by 10 seconds. Lower mana cost on Q and some mana stuff. Yeah, well, at bare minimum, she does have access to her chains. It's okay. Okay. Cooldown and mana changes. Ugh, I still don't have great predictors for cooldown and mana changes. Let's go see. Let's go see. What do my cooldown notes say? A champion who does not cast their spells off CD will be less affected by a CD change. The following types of abilities are most impacted by cooldown or duration changes, provided that it represents a significant portion of the champion's output. Poke spells, okay, can absolutely be a poke spell. Core personal defenses, core DPS or HPS, in combat spammable mobility, that's less than 6-second cooldown, not this. Catch or protective utility, well, this is also catch. Window limiting ultimates on aggro champions, hey. And spells with ideal 100% uptime, hey. Okay, so a cooldown change on Mimic is good on paper. A 10-second at early ranks cooldown on Mimic, like, I guess it does make her laning more consistent, and her laning needs to be more consistent for her to get value as a champion, because she does need to generate a lead so that her pattern later can actually be threatening. Like, if she's not getting kills, like, LeBlanc contributes virtually nothing to a team fight. It's all in the setup. If she's not able to set up because she's behind, oh my god, you feel so bad. So, actually, like, yeah, this does, like, marginally affect her ability to find things in lane, and this is the type of spell that would be most impacted by a cooldown, but my guts, I know this isn't, like, deep analysis, my gut still says this isn't good enough to create, like, new LeBlanc pick conditions. That being said, the game is more aggressively played than I always give it credit for, so, like, but, I mean, if you're on the LeBlanc struggle bus right now and you're playing her anyway, congratulations, you're a little bit stronger, but if you're looking for a new champion in your pool, I probably still would not recommend LeBlanc right now. Lee Sin, oh, terrible champion. They're making him less terrible, okay. So, it is a damage buff. damage buff, and slow buff. Ooh, slow buff. Kind of cool. True. Yeah, if you don't have cohesion, if your jungler's not playing around you and you're LeBlanc, you're in hell. It sucks. Oh yeah, and like this champion is half a champion without her jungler, so... Okay, but let's get specific about Lee Sin. Plus 10% BAD on Q. Plus 10% BAD minimum physical damage on Q. On Q2, rather. The way that that works is, yes, it does in fact increase the ratio of maximum physical damage by 20. The... Wait, what? I just... decreased. What? But why would you... I don't understand. Lee Sin is so weak. Okay, so the only possible thing I can think of when I see this is, like, maybe New Eclipse did something here. Like, maybe New Eclipse gave him some haste or something that's, like, made him a better champion and we didn't notice, but, like... Oh, wait, this is a typo? This is a typo? Lee Sin got a total AD ratio? He's not updated yet, which makes sense because I wouldn't expect every page to be updated right away, like before the patches even dropped. Lee Sin got a total ratio? Oh, he did. Oh, that changes. That changes things a bit. Oh. That makes sense. What a bad typo in the patch notes. That's really bad. Thank you, Hailfire. I appreciate it. I appreciate you catching that out for me. Okay, so by how much... Okay, so it's now a total AD ratio, which means Lee Sin's... So it means he's now getting his 68 base here. He's now getting his 130 at level 18. Okay, so it's actually, because of how stat growth works, this damage is actually scaling more into the game. Now, it does still mean that, like, at level 1, because what, this is minus 65. Oh, hang on. Oh. There is absolutely no decrease in damage on this ability. Don't be mean to Rito Writer. I mean, it is a bad mistake. Someone just... I mean, I would never flame them for it, right? It's not in my nature. I know mistakes happen. It's fine. But this... Oopsies. We can laugh at it a bit, right? So... Okay. Despite appearances, since a typo has occurred and it's actually become a total AD ratio, Lee Sin's E has not lost any damage whatsoever. It has only gained damage. It has only gained damage. Because his base AD at level 1 compensates for this completely. So he's gaining plus 10% bonus AD on Q1. He's gaining up to plus 20% bonus AD on Q2. So for a maximum potential of plus 30% bonus AD here, if he's getting his items, right? Natural scaling increases the value of this ability still. it will just deal more damage. And the slow with skill point investment is going up. Well, I would sympathize. Like, I maybe someone could have proved these, but I don't know what's going on with them after they're scrambling to recover from the cybersecurity stuff, you know? Like, I am always willing to give the people working on the game the benefit of the doubt. So again, assuming a 1 item, and we're going to be funny and assume Prowlers. That is up to an additional 18 damage here. And then as Lee Sin scales... As Lee Sin scales, it is up to, like... If by some miracle he gets up to level 18... hold on. Eventually that'll be like an extra 60 damage onto E. At all ranks, because and the funniest possible conclusion is, yo, Trinity Force Lee Sin, like, the E damage go burr. My only concern is that this damage does not come online early enough for Lee Sin's game plan to be helped a lot. Lee Sin is fundamentally an aggro champ, and you do have to try to generate leads with him, and you are getting, like, at most, like, 30 extra damage here, and then, like, we're just gonna, like, estimate, like, up to 60 bonus damage here, which is a big number, but that requires level 18. So what I actually start to think is that if anything is hugely impacted by these, it's solo lane Lee Sin. It's actually solo lane Lee Sin that really values these changes, because that's gaining the most damage, because it does mean that Lee Sin values levels more highly. And I know he just lost, like, ideal Ravenous Hydra, but it remains an option to help him lane. I would look into it. I would be a bit surprised if Jungle Lee Sin became dramatically stronger from, like, this amount of damage. But I'm really curious to see what happens when we experiment with solo lane Lee Sin again. That's what I would say to that. Right. Compared to a lack of oversight. Triforce, Ravenous, Sterix, Leap. Based! Extremely based. I like that. Probably Rav Rush, though, just to facilitate the laning phase, right? So yeah, I do think that the meaningful damage comes online too late for Jungle Lee Sin because he's an aggro champ. But who knows? We'll see. Okay, so Trundle's becoming the best champion in the game because Trundle's dance speed now scales with his movement speed. That buff is way too powerful, too much psychological warfare. Trundle can't win. But on a serious note, I was lower on Trundle during Season 12 than most other people. I think while people were still playing him and saying he's really good, I wasn't feeling him. And I can now chalk that up to participating in Platinum Leagues, where Trundle thrives on the chaos and just is a better champion than he is in theory. So I think both existed at once. Theoretical Trundle wasn't that good, but in amateur leagues, Trundle was still thriving. That was until the last set of nerfs, where Subjugate got noticeably weaker, and like a base attack speed reduction on a champion who relies on attack speed but doesn't build any attack speed is a big deal. And so, you know, I thought Trundle's Frozen Domain nerf would be impactful on 12-17. Yeah, I even wrote, like, optimal W max builds hit with reduced uptime, and then I wrote a bunch about how I doubted myself. It's like, oh, well, Trundle was one of the few top tiers that hadn't been nerfed, so he is stronger than the rest, and I wasn't thinking about it. But, like, no, his uptime has been hit, his movement speed has been hit, his damage has been hit, his attack speed has been hit, his... there was something else, like, at some point. Basically, like, he's a stat stick who got bad at stat sticking. But now they have slightly rolled back the Frozen Domain nerf. They're saying, Trundle, we're sorry, you can have some of your uptime back because we nerfed your W attack speed, your base attack speed so much. And so... And then it says, systems nerfs affected him on top of other things. But it's not a full revert. So... This is a spell you want very high uptime on. And the higher the uptime of Frozen Domain, the more his lower base attack speed is compensated for. Since he is less able to utilize, well, actually, okay, well, I'm not gonna actually you until I double check, but yeah, sure enough, that's not actually true. They hit his base attack speed, but not his ratio. Right? So the ratio is still completely unaffected. It's just the initial, right? So I wasn't gonna actually you before I checked, but like I was reasonably sure. I was reasonably sure they hadn't touched this yet, right? So yes, so greater uptime of W compensates for Trundle's base attack speed nerf because his ratio was untouched. But to what degree? Let's give Trundle a bit of a check, shall we? Wow, he has gotten so desperate that he's gone back to Bork in the jungle. That's a lot of desperation. Yeah. Now, interestingly enough, I never checked the numbers before right now. We do have a low pick rate, high win rate option in the IBG, which does appear to be rushed if you're looking at this game time. And when we look at like what systems nerfs hit him dramatically, like it probably would have been like DD and no, but he was always itemizing tank options immediately afterwards, right? I'm just catching up on Trundle. I've been out of the loop on him ever since he got like killed, and I never had to think about him because I was never the biggest Trundle fan as a blind pick. This seems to be trying to give him some damage following IBG, right? Yeah, I mean, Trundle was always good when immobile carries were in the game and when tanks were more prevalent. So it's worth investigating some of the IBG stuff that we just found looking at Trundle builds. Like, it's worth seeing that. I guess the only way to resolve this is to think about what Season 12 Trundle was like. Why was Season 12 Trundle everywhere? Because tanks were everywhere, especially in the top lane, and immobile carries were everywhere. So you could reasonably blind pick Trundle and expect good Trundle conditions to, like, organically create themselves. And then he received several nerfs, and now the state of the game has changed. There are fewer tanks running around top lane right now. There are tanks in the jungle, but the subjugate thing that made him the best, like the subjugate nerf, made him less effective at dealing with them. And so rolling back some of the uptime of Frozen Domain when, like, his best matchups are a little out of favor, it is easier to draft, like, higher mobility, when a lot of ranged supports are running around, not exposing themselves to Trundle. That's big. He also favors countering AD champs, and, that's also a good point, physical bruisers are not as prominent. We only really have Vi and Wukong getting picked, like, all the time, and a lot of demonic users, if you look at top level, right? ADCs are stronger, but there's so many ranged champions with reasonable peel that they're keeping him out more effectively. And so I don't really look at Trundle and say Trundle's really good at countering ADCs because he has to get to them first, and he has good catch. He is reasonably okay at getting to them. I more look at it as, like, he's really good at answering other physical bruisers who, like, have to play in his zone and always get chomped, like, all the time. It's a complicated issue with Trundle, and this is a really good step because he does absolutely need the uptime, and he does need the attack speed to compensate for some of the other changes. And I'm not willing to say, like, weaker Subjugate alone is responsible for Trundle's disappearance. What I will say is that I think Trundle is very easy to play. I think when Trundle is playable at all, he's a completely fine champion to run. I'm not fond of him in theoretical play. Or I'm not as fond of him in theoretical play as, like, a lot of top-level players were in his heyday. So the only conclusion that I can really draw that would be fair to Trundle is that I personally wouldn't read too much into this, even though I think this is a buff in the right direction to restoring some of his power. But because I am looking at this and saying, like, it's okay, it will probably have greater effects on, like, Platinum and below play than I am anticipating. The strong ADCs now have higher threat on him. Okay. Okay, yeah, no, that's actually true. Yeah. Oh, because we have all of these rage chips. Yeah, and, like, Kindred has always been, like, just absolutely devastating for Trundle. I can like tie that bit of knowledge together. Poor Trundle. Yeah, fuck this guy. I don't think this is big. Okay. Okay, Zach. Speaking of broken champions, there's a lot of them in the game right now. Zach's WAP ratio is going down 1% per 100 AP of target's maximum health. And he is losing 10% AP on Elastic Slingshot. This is intended to nerf Demonic Embrace. This is intended to nerf even harder the Demonic Embrace Rocket Belt shenanigans going on in mid lane. That said, we can, because it's like we can simplify this into roughly a 1% DPS, 1% max HP DPS nerf. We can simplify it into that. Like, it's grossly oversimplified, and it's only on Demonic. When we see that, that is a DPS nerf that we have to think, like, okay, that matters. That matters. And then he's losing some burst damage too, right? And then on top of that, there's going to be a Radiant nerf coming up, which will impact Zac more than it will impact other champions, because it means Zac is getting less haste, which also does impact his DPS even further. Okay, that's a big deal. So, that does mean that it is likely that the, like, era of completely overpowered Zac has ended. But I want to point out that this isn't, like, all the damage isn't all of his output, right? Zac has plenty of CC to go around. He has a long CC chain. Even though his own personal damage is lower, he is still going to provide value to teams if you find, like... I mean, he's also just, like, a fundamentally incredible champion in specifically Platinum, right? He's always stronger than he should be in Platinum. So, you know, Zac being overpowered was a big issue. What I'm trying to say is that Zac has more output than his damage, and he will be noticeably worse at solo killing people. But I struggle to see in lower level amateur play a completely absent Zac. He is absolutely still doing plenty. And if you are an honest tank player, you know, just get a little more used to not fully one-shotting people, but your champion is still going to be, at minimum, like, pretty good. Don't overreact to this, but you will feel it. Okay. Speaking of, we're immediately moving into Radiant Virtue. So on the preseason patch, I predicted that this item would be broken and everyone would buy it. And I was wrong, but only because Jack Show was broken. And then when Jack Show got nerfed, oh look, Radiant Virtue, here it is. It does so much. So what are they doing to Radiant Virtue? Plus 200 gold, fair, that's fine. They're trying to get it away from support champions. They're like, get rid of it on support role. 3,200 gold is an absolutely unacceptable amount of gold for a support to buy, to spend on one item, unless the item is like absolutely giga broken. And its components are not giving supports like a lot of insane power, so like, they're like, please get it out of here. They're nerfing the cooldown to target like specifically Karma, and then they're giving you more HP if you have built HP. They're saying the more HP you have, the better this item will be. That's even more. There is no longer a healing amp passive, so it will just heal you the same amount, you and your allies, the same amount consistently. Each tick is worth the same. But it no longer grants any ability haste, and this was a lot of invisible power. This was very strong. Now, me personally, every time an item allows me to heal my allies while also doing my other jobs, like, I'm not going to stop building this item as, like, a selfless sort of tank player. Like, that's the kind of player that I am, and I look at this and I still think, like, yeah, the item's completely fine. It was just, like, giga broken before. And in fact, maybe we'll start to see, like, some of the initial preseason predictions coming true now, where Radiant Virtue becomes kind of a bad rush item. And it's not giving you a lot of value until you have greater HP, and you would much rather go, like, Anathemas into Radiant on a lot of champions. But I'm not going to, like, fully predict that because, you know, I'm going to need some time to feel out this change. It is better against higher health targets, and I mean, like, I'm trying to... How does this interact? I don't want to do the math. I'm lazy. Like... Oh, I know how... Are you giving me, like, a value coming up, or? It is worse healing. Okay, thank you. I was too lazy, so Hailfire to the rescue. Thank you. It is going to be inferior healing on very low HP target. Well, actually, hold on. No. Because I'm trying to factor in, like, the fact that you have more HP now. Okay. We'll not factoring in the additional HP. It is now noticeably worse on low health targets and better at keeping people topped up. Factoring in the HP, you know, it probably is still just, in general, a weaker heal. Oh no, wait a minute. Losing the haste is big. A weaker heal when the heal is most important is big. Because Radiant was not putting up outstanding numbers on high health targets to begin with. This is a major nerf. This is a significant nerf. This is absolutely a significant nerf on all users. So yeah, I now will formally predict that what I believed to be true during the beginning of preseason will now come true. I do think we will find significantly less value in rushing this item. And we will try to fish for, like, legendary into Radiant more often. The tank item ecosystem, I believe, has no more overpowered mythics. So, Yeah, if you are an honest tank player, you just enjoy playing tanks, you will have to go back to the drawing board, look at like some standard tank itemization stuff, find like what your best legendary rush options are, and then you can still probably pivot into Radiant Virtue because it's still going to feel good. Like reasonably good. It's just, no. It'll feel good once you've done that. I struggle to imagine this being a good rush item anymore. And that does hit Zac, especially since his demonic build just got hit again. It hits Sejuani, it hits Maokai. And I would agree with you, Regdor. I would agree that IBG or Jackshow doesn't feel nearly as good on those particular champions. And we're still going to do that. I think most didn't rush it that often at the higher levels. Well, I did absolutely see, like, you know, Sejuani gets locked. Radiant Virtue Rush. Zac gets locked. It is demonic into Radiant often, but sometimes there are game states for just Radiant. Maokai gets locked. It is demonic into Radiant pretty often. So I guess this, like, predominantly is, like, a sort of thing where it's like, yeah, Sejuani as a rush is bad. Karma as a rush. That was one of the big users, right? Actual honest supports, Swain support, Leona, not like some of the melees who are still trying to make themselves work. We're relying on this a little bit. So, yeah, so the few users who did rush this item won't be doing it anymore. And like the demonic into Radiant users will still be able to build this item. It's just losing the haste is a big deal. Weaker healing on lower health targets is a big deal. And you know, some of the personal defenses, it's fine. Like, we're going to see this item still finding value as the game goes on. Totally fine. But like some of the abuse rush cases are gone. Stop building it on support. And we no longer have any overpowered tank mythics. So just like settle into proper standard tank itemization. Look for your good legendary rushes. And we will see a couple of tanks impacted in power, but as we explained during Zac, their output was not just this. This was just very strong. Right? Support mythics are kind of for melees. You are correct. I think Locket is in the weakest state it's ever been in, although Locket is still completely reasonably fine. It's okay. It's all right. I personally do like Everfrost on a number of melees, but even Everfrost is weak, so that's a pain in the ass. Like what do you build? What are you doing? Like, what are you trying to get on a melee support? Like, we've had the Even Shroud conversation too. It's like, does that 10% damage mean very much? Well, especially in a post-durability update world, it's like, And like, I am willing to reassess Even Shroud now, just because the situation has gotten dire. I'm willing to assess it. I think low-key, before this, Rel was in the best state she has ever been in. Why? Because she had full Enchanter itemization available to her. Radiant into Mikhail's into Redemption was low-key really fucking good on Rel, if you were able to get that much money. Like, Rel just had Enchanter itemization. She's in the best state she's ever been in. It's on QMax 2nd. So yeah, we are a little bit concerned for melee support power too. What do? We'll solve some problems, right? Tanks are interesting. My last study on standard tank itemization has not looked too kindly on the mythics right now, but you know, tanks still do have some genuinely excellent legendaries, right? Even Shroud, Braum, Lucian. I'm concerned. I would agree with you, but I do think Lucian is way too hard bound to enchanters right now because I think Vigilance accounts for too much of his damage. At least early. I know there's like the funny nukes later, but it's weird. Weird champ. Even Braum Lucian is not really a combo that works anymore. Like, what a weird game state. What a really weird game state. You and I still have to actually sit down and have our conversations. We were talking about this in like November because we do have different perspectives and it is fun whatever we do. So okay, but that's fine. I'll come back to this one and I'll figure out some more. Okay, Umbroglaive. So I personally have actually stopped buying this on a number of supports. Pyke is still picking it up, obviously, but like, no, not even. So Look, it feels oppressive in the right game state, but like in a solo queue perspective, in a low level amateur perspective, Pike finds a lot more value out of Prowler's Rush into Axiom. Senna finds a lot more value out of like just, I mean, there's IE Rush available to her now, which is really funny. There's just Eclipse Rush. Like, Umbral Glaive's stats are bad. The best user before, like a while ago, was Graves because it pivoted him into like an Umbral Eclipse, like, you know, it just got him going faster, and it was kind of funny that way. So Umbral Glaive losing power in its passive is a big deal. Minus 10 seconds on cooldown, fair, like we're that makes sense. Like, it does feel oppressive and horrible to deal with. Ranged users are not one-shotting wards anymore. I want Senna players to stop building this. Actually, the problem too is like the rise of they're definitely targeting this because of the rise of AD carry supports. This is shade at Ashe support. Yes, Ashe support is getting hit a little bit. The whole Caitlyn support, Kalista support, like that whole lethality thing is trying to target them. And unlike Senna, Kalista support doesn't have, like, early Eclipse options. That doesn't sound very compelling for her. Caitlyn support doesn't have, like, excellent early conditions there, right? Now, are these champions fully going away? No, I absolutely wouldn't say so. Because champions who don't have better lethality options, like support champions who don't have access to lethality, ranged lethality supports who don't have access to Eclipse were fine with Umbral for its stats before. They liked its cost. They weren't going to go into Yumu's or Axiom Rush. And although this will harm them, it will not be damning. It just makes them less oppressive. It doesn't affect their ability to lane. It's still a completely fine item on those champions. I just want to very quickly explain, like, standard assassin itemization. Ranged users of, like, standard lethality devalue their mythics in current state unless they're Eclipse users. When ranged lethality users devalue their mythics, they start to look at, like, okay, what is the best legendary I can get my hands on? For farming champions, that would unironically, and I hate to say this because I don't think the items are outstanding, it is unironically Yumu's versus Axiom. Like, that's your conversation to have. That's why Varus is rushing Yumu's in pro play right now. Because the Umbral Glade stats stunt you on farming income. The supports who don't have better options are not saving up for Axiom. They're not saving up for Yumu's. They are getting this Umbral. Building whatever is cheap. Yeah, they're just building whatever's cheap. And so is the passive being weaker going to really feel awful for those champions? No, I don't think so. It just makes this more fair to play against. Because why should Kalista support just choke you out completely in terms of vision? It does weaken those strategies a little bit, but because all of those strategies are based around lane dominance and snowballing it out, like, you can have normal human vision control and you'll be fine, and, like, it's not that big a deal. But if you were, like, a farming user of Umbral, if you still existed for some reason, maybe don't. Kalista and Kate support. So I also just wanted, this is a complete aside, and it's not going in the edited version of this video. Kalista support's my favorite of the marksman supports that have risen. I think Kalista support is the one with the best argument for being completely legitimate. I don't like Caitlyn support. I think that pick sounds awful. I don't like Jhin support. I genuinely don't like Jhin support. Because what's the problem with Kalista, guys? The problem with Kalista is how hard she falls off in terms of combat potential, right? Kalista AD Carry is a champion that stomps her lane and then transitions into a utility pick for her support. So she remains good at confirming objectives, she remains good at controlling some vision, and she remains good at enabling her support to do, like, psychotic things. And that's why I personally believed the best style of support for Callista was, like, Silas, Nico, Swain. Like, some mage support that likes... that profits from Callista's ultimate to give them more aggressive windows, while compensating for the damage that she no longer deals. So Callista's support still has all of those tools, except now it's on an 80 carry and protecting them. So I genuinely think there's value in Callista's support outside of this just, like, rise of crazy marksman supports. Now that I've had the chance to, now that that idea has been brought up to me, because we're experimenting with, like, Caitlyn and Ashe and Twitch and all of that, like, yeah, Callista sounds pretty legitimate as a niche pick. It really does. I just don't like Jhin because I don't like relying on his, like, non-empowered bouncing grenade, and he scales like dog shit, and just, right? I don't like Caitlyn because her scaling is atrocious there. Like, I do like Twitch because he needs so few items to be useful. I do like Ashe because she, like, and again, like, actually, maybe some of this tangent does make it in because we have to talk about Ashe, who, even if this ends up, like, dramatically harming her, Ashe in particular has the option to just go, like, mandate Axiom or something crazy like that, right? But yeah, like, I like the champions that do... a lot of the marksman support that we're trying right now really rely on, like, that bully and that exact tempo, but the really good ones offer more beyond that, and I do think Callista does. Ashe is split between 80 AP pathing. I wouldn't... Okay, so I actually do understand this a lot more now, because I was, like, a staunch anti-mandate Ashe player, and that turned out to be incorrect. I was wrong. It's not that she dips into AP itemization, it's just that that gives her the most utility possible. And so, like, again, like, you saw, like, Umbral, Leandry... Sorry, not Leandry's, what am I saying? Umbral mandates, like, Axiom and stuff, and it, like, her entire build is just how much haste can I get and how much utility can I get. Actually, the damage is kind of secondary. There is a universe in which you go, like... Oh, in terms of Hob versus Comet. Oh, I hate Comet. No, I hate Comet. I think this is a personal thing. This is a personal thing. I really do think you just always need the Halo Blades for laning to be a functional champion. Because Ashe's W cooldown is so grossly... Like, you do confirm Comet. You do. It's fine, but... I think you... I think it's fine. You do confirm Comet, but I think it is less consistent for laning, and because you need to be an aggressive laner as a marksman support, I would always value Hob. Okay, that's my tangent. Maybe we move on for some stuff here. We even have some more champions. Okay, and Overheal was intended to ship... Actually, it says right here. I watched the Freak video. He wanted it in 12.1b. Or sorry, he wanted it in... Freak wanted this in 13.1b to supplement the mana changes that they made to unbind people from Presence of Mind, and obviously it didn't work because Overheal wasn't any good. So it now does not scale off your maximum health. It's now 20 to 300 based on champion level, Overheal. This is a buff from level 5 onwards. Okay, if you have a healing support, let's now investigate what happened with mana changes last patch. Let's see if Presence of Mind is not as essential. Let's see if we're allowed to run this when we have a healing enchanter. Let's see if we're really getting a lot of value from this as a Bloodthirster rusher. Now, the problem that I come up with is that the best Bloodthirster rushers are Misfortune and Draven, who both get very mana limited and would value Presence, but, you know, it gets muddy there. But melee fighters still gain a lot of value from Triumph. Ranged champions, I mean, yeah, it's like... I would not be surprised if this was just a really good, like, break glass in case of emergency, or, like, perfect conditions for it. Rune, we just need to... I am not confident making a prediction about this until I really have a chance to sit down and, like, fully assess non-presence of mind laning, because there was no reason to even try assessing it last patch, right? I will say, it looks appealing. It looks reasonably fine. But looks can be deceiving. It's worth your time to check out. Okay. This is big. This is the big one. This is the big one. Melee support adjustments. So the pro meta is more than 20-1. Why are melee supports gone? What happened to them? I did a study on like 12-12 or something like that because I wanted to figure out what's going on. And what I concluded is that melee supports, or what I concluded is that engaged champions need a certain amount of damage to justify their existence. Otherwise, all they do is exert pressure on their teammates to have like immediate and overwhelming follow-up. If you are playing Leona, you need a certain amount of damage for your engaged to like really have threats. Otherwise, you're just kind of a sitting duck, right? Otherwise, like your only output is CC, which is valuable, but your teammates have to do a lot more heavy lifting. If you are an engaged champion who does no damage, you say to your teammates, follow me up now with, like, compensate fully for my lack of damage, or I will die. And having that I will die is very bad. The lack of damage stemmed from 12-10. The engaged supports lost a lot of damage. It became harder to all-in somebody. And so, like, also, like, there's compounding things, too. Like, Spell Thieves is really, really good. On 12-14, the meta was supposed to trend towards mage supports because I believe that Dragon aggro became the best way to play the game, and that didn't fully catch on. And I do think it's starting to actually catch on now with, like, the whole marksman support thing. But that is a theory topic, and this is a show about amateur play, right? In reality, melee supports have been completely okay in amateur play. But they've been really easy to deal with because there's so many good counter picks to engage supports who are not doing enough damage and their threat is lower, and like where mistakes are high, their threat is high. So they've been fine, but even in like platinum level, they've only been at best fine, right? The approach that they seem to be taking is not to give back their damage. It's to make them more capable of playing out multiple sequences. The approach seems to be make supports better at laning so that even though they are not dealing as much damage as they used to, and they shouldn't, it is more likely that the carry behind them is more snowballed. And so the threat that they're exerting on their own team isn't as big a deal. And I also do want to just put a little bit of an asterisk. Rel became an exception once she stopped dying to everything. Because you don't exert that pressure if you also have like a shit ton of healing. I need to stop swearing when I'm recording for YouTube. Okay. I also want to just point out that like Rel was kind of an exception to that, where it's not like you need to do all of the damage, because Rel had an alternate way to keep herself alive and buy time for her teammates in the form of a lot of healing with enchanter itemization. Amateur has more melee support due to Western players generally being worse at range. I agree. Like, we're also just kind of bad, and we can't play ranged very well. So, the consequences is that a class that is objectively very, very, very weak in theoretical play was already reasonably okay in amateur, right? And now they're getting deserved, necessary buffs, which may have implications over a level of play where these were already okay, and where we as players are just worse at piloting the ranged supports to an advantage. So although I am going to scrutinize these changes very heavily, I want you to note that when I say a champion is probably not going to be significantly buffed off some of these changes, that they're still better in amateur than they are in theory. So let's start with the one that I do remember seeing, the one that I think probably got buffed the most. Alistar. Alistar is gaining a 5% max health self-heal, and he's granting 6% of his max health to allies. Okay. So that is intending to make Alistar more poke resistant, which is a big deal. Okay. Let's take a peek at Alistar. What's going on here? Let's assume the absolute worst case. I'm a level 5 Alistar. I'm rounding down. I'm being completely not generous to Alistar whatsoever. I have 1000 HP. Okay? Why am I even using a calculator? I'm healing myself for 50 almost every wave, and I'm healing my 80 carry for 60 almost every wave. And that is not generous. He's actually healing for more. 50, let's actually see what exactly he was doing to himself before. Oh, we don't get to see the old one anymore because they've not put it down here yet. Oh, that makes the comparison a little bit hard. Yeah, but it's going to be more than 50 because he's going to have, like, what? Like, whoa. Because don't forget, it's max HP. So there's actually going to be, like, an extra plus... It's actually going to be, like, an extra +5 on his own heal. And it's like, oh, wait, is he running the scaling HP rune? Oh, that's even more. And so we're actually quickly approaching, like... a reasonable amount of healing, right? A reasonable amount of healing that comes online more for the mid to late. Okay, hang on. Let's go check some things out. He gains a stack every time he casts his abilities, too. Oh, hang on. I'm starting to have second thoughts about this. Well, the mana costs are going down on his spells, and the AP ratios are going up, and he's becoming more poke resistant. So the intention is very clearly to allow Alistar to survive some difficult phases of his lane, and take multiple trades. How you'll find multiple trades as such a short-range champion is beyond me, but people make mistakes. Much of Alistar's value is his roam, his ability to dive, I guess just enduring... poke. 55 as the most non-generous. I'm doing the math as harshly as possible, and then I'm getting surprised when I feel like it's not very good. Okay, let's be fully honest about this. A level 4 Alistar. No, okay. A level 5 Alistar. 1040 plus I was trying to remember the full name of it. Targon's Buckler. Bulwark of the Mountain, that's it. Okay. 1040 plus 250 health from Bulwark, which actually at level 5 he won't have, so let's go for the 100 on Targon's Buckler. He's got 1140 max health, and then let's also say he has the scaling HP shard. And say that he has an additional 44. Okay. He's healing himself for 60, and he's healing his 80 carry for 71. Which is an overall swing in the lane of like 130 HP every wave. And we can't see the exact value of what it was before, but I'm going to assume that it was slightly lower than that. It's not bad when you look at it from that perspective. It makes it easier to survive an Alistar lane. But truthfully, even though the first time I heard about this change, I feel like this must have gotten nerfed since the last time I heard about it. Or either that or I just didn't do the math, because I'm still not convinced that that's enough for Alistar. They're trying to make him more capable of taking multiple trades, and he shouldn't be able to find multiple trades because he's very range limited, unless he's like really stomping lane and has Hex Slash and is, you know, like doing stuff. He's more effective on the roams, and this doesn't impact his roams too much, although it is giving him like a little bit of damage. And, you know, these ratios are 100% high enough to justify Dark Seal every game, for the record. I'm just not sold thinking about this. Like, I just don't feel like... I don't feel like that keeps him... it helps his AD carry. Oh, okay. I mean, in that case, this offsets the penalty to having Alistar a little bit. And this interaction with Darkseal does compensate for the roams a little bit. And so, if you find an Alistar angle, by all means take it. I am just struggling to imagine this alone creating a lot of new Alistar angles. Alien Gold is like worrisome. Platinum, yeah. Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. It's weird. It's weird. You know, but like the more mistakes you make, the better Alistar is. And so, a lot of damage by a Darkseal. These are Rakan ratios. Okay, that's where we'll put it. Braum. Target immunity is now syncing up with his ultimate levels and is making it more intuitive, and it comes online sooner at a like regular time where supports are expected to hit. Cool. That's actually not bad. That's not bad. 2-second cooldown, so Braum is allowed to fight back against poke a little more. And the bone... Whoa! Okay. Now, this is his last max, so we are realistically reading this as plus 10 bonus armor and magic resist, which he can self-cast right before taking a burst of damage. Supports like their durability steroids. And Braum, the worst champion in the game at dealing with range, is getting some slightly better tools at dealing with range. Is he going to be good at dealing with range? Hell no. This isn't doing anything against poke. This is actually just making him more oppressive in his melee matchups. But, maybe some increased access to... Oh, wait, but then it just scales up into the same value. It's literally... Okay, for the first 10 minutes of the game, Braum is a better champion. And then afterwards, this is kind of nice. This is fine. These are very tame buffs, though, I think. Nautilus, the best one right now, just not because he's durable. Actually, okay, without reading what's happening, if Nautilus gets durability, that's a big deal for him. He is getting, yeah, okay, Nautilus needed damage, cool. He kind of did. He kind of did. Nautilus, what the fuck? Okay, despite how it's written here, Nautilus got durability. He got an increase to his W, and he got an increase to his shield strength. And this is a champion. It's plus 10 at all ranks, and it's a plus 10 at all ranks doesn't make it like super. No, it's plus 10 at all ranks. Plus 10 at all ranks, greater cooldown, and something that you would value at high uptime in a long lane phase. Kind of cool. And then the magic damage is going up by 20 at rank 5, and the AP ratio is going up by 20%. Okay, so against... Okay, Nautilus doesn't become, like, hugely more poke resistant. Okay, sorry. The cooldown does make Nautilus more poke resistant in lane, and that's a big deal. Especially since Nautilus should on paper be one of the best champions at dealing with all of the poke supports by just having the greatest threat on them. I don't think plus 6 damage at all levels is really gonna do anything meaningful for him at all. This doesn't help him in any, like, non-poke scenarios, really. So the conditions where Nautilus is just the squishiest engaged support in the game and gets blown up in something, that doesn't change anything. It's just an anti-poke tool. So I would look at this and say, like, neat, but for Platinum, pick conditions unchanged, and for Theory, I'm not sold that this makes him much better. I think it's also very tame. This is the interesting one, though, because how soon does this hit a wave clear breakpoint? And what does that mean for Nautilus mid? That's actually where I want to investigate the most. Okay, Pyke is getting a raw Damage increase. Oh, Pike doesn't feel like garbage after level 9 when none of his spells are worth leveling. Nice. Pike is gaining plus 40 damage at rank 5 on a burst champion, which is significant, especially since Pike is capable for fishing for his windows, and Pike's combo is dangerous. That's a big deal. If I remember correctly, I did rate Pike as one of the better melee supports in current state because I was so low on tanks. And nice, cool, damage for Pike. Awesome. That does make him more threatening. Okay, Rakan. What is Rakan? Stop buffing Rakan's AP ratios. Are you insane? He's... He can at least pull the opponent to him without exposing himself to danger. Yes, but Pike becomes a lot more dangerous as the game goes on, where that becomes a lot harder to do. He still will struggle to play into like stopwatches and dashes and all of that, and high movement speed and all that, right? And he can pull his opponent to him, but at the end of the day, like in any non-laning and non-skirmish scenarios, this is always going to be dangerous, and so we do value the damage, and that's very nice, right? It's very nice. Rakan is gaining a shorter cooldown on Q, a cheaper mana cost, beautiful, a greater base heal, a significantly greater base heal at high levels. That's a much bigger base heal at high levels. That's like almost, that's plus 95 at level 18. And granted, we're not getting to level 18, but like plus 95 has ripple effects throughout the rest of the scaling. And then just for some reason, he needs more AP ratios. Okay, so I think Rakan is good on paper, but is not supported by systems right now. I genuinely think Rakan is an excellent champion who doesn't have items. Because what's he going to do from support role? First of all, I'm genuinely at the point where I'm like rushing Medjais on Rakan. Like I've been there for a while ever since Zanya's got nerfed on him. I don't like playing tank Rakan because remember, AP is his core stat because it translates not only to damage but to durability and to utility. That's a big deal. But like, what do? You have 3,000 gold Zanyas. Rocket Belt is too expensive for you. Everfrost sucks. Like, Rocket Belt would be the perfect item if he could justify that. Maybe I experiment with it again or something. Like, I don't know. But the TLDR is Rakan's been on my watch list as a good champion. So I struggle to view this as, like, big. Don't get me wrong. This healing change, the second the meta shifts back towards melee supports more, the second Rakan gets items that are perfect for him, he's broken. I genuinely believe that. The second Rakan gets supported by the systems in the game, this champ's broken, and we will see nerfs. But he's very unsupported right now. The meta's bad for him, the items are bad for him. Does all of this, like, compensate? 45, it's good for a spell you want to throw out all the time. It's good for a spell you want to throw out all the time if you're capable, without taking too much damage. It syncs up with your passive. Yeah, you know what? I'm actually willing to give Rakan the benefit of the doubt on this one and say that, like, maybe more pick conditions into range champions come from this one. Like, I'm actually kind of feeling this one. If you're able to use your shield appropriately and never get poked before it comes... yeah. I don't know. I'm kind of feeling this one. It's reasonably okay. It's reasonably okay. And amateur play Rakan doesn't care about his poor systems. Thresh. Magic damage. The AP ratio is increasing by 30%, which is interpreted as 0.8 damage per soul. The shield per soul... Alright, that was the best property of Thresh. The big fat W max. They forgot to actually write the 60% AP ratio. Okay, every time Thresh gets damage increases, I say, good, that is the right direction for Thresh, and that makes him closer to a champion who is, like, capable of skirmishing with stuff, but, like, It's all scaling value, and then they nerfed his W. I don't think... sorry. I don't think Thresh can lane. His damage is so low, he can't function into the... like. Okay, there is a plus 20 base damage here, and like, okay, so what is the champion getting? He's getting a plus 20 increase on like a burst champion, we'll consider. That's well below our threshold of like, this matters. And so, I don't care. Damn, that is kind of disappointing. That is really disappointing, actually, because, like, again, just running through all of these, actually checking the numbers, I'm not convinced. It's okay, but he's still really bad into the meta. This one's definitely like a little better. This one definitely feels a little better. And this I want to check out mid, but like, fine. Actually, kind of nice. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. Like, not real. Like, they tried to make all these champions better into ranged, and I think they kind of succeeded on Nautilus, like a little bit. I think they kind of succeeded on Rakan. But I do not think we'll see nearly as big a shakeup as they were hoping for. Well, that's a little sad. Unless you're terrorizing people with, like, Medjai's cow. Have fun. And so I guess my disclaimer at the beginning kind of came true. I still think most of these champions are kind of weak on paper, in theory. But since we play amateur play, and they were totally serviceable in that level, then these are just buffs to champions you were already probably playing. And you do you, and you don't stop picking your champs, and you'll still find success, and like melee supports do run platinum. And so although I am not seeing a lot of change, you'll get value. You'll get value. Okay, Tenacity. Okay, so now we actually have to look at Legend Tenacity again. Legend Tenacity got nerfed. They are trying to severely nerf Tenacity. I will point out, I think Everfrost is weak, but the worse Tenacity gets, the better Everfrost becomes again. And then maybe we start to look at Vhagar again, and maybe that champion stops being complete trash. And then maybe we look at like Everfrost Rakan, and we have an angle. Like, so Tenacity sources within the same group will stack multiplicatively with each other, which is net weaker together. So everything that you can actually buy or opt into from runes or items now stacks multiplicatively. The extra value you're getting is going to be Silvermere Dawn active to try to make this a bit more appealing. Regular Cleanse, which is supposed to be high value, and then modes buffs. And then the Group C, which is going to stack additively, is just the stuff that is explicitly a part of your kit. So basically, okay, Chemtech Dragon buff, funnily enough, just nerfs Chemtech Drake itself, which, maybe, yeah. Moss Stomper is weaker, Unflinching, Tenacity, IVG is, I actually didn't know that. Anathemas... Oh, they're talking the negative Tenacity on its effect. Okay. So CC is marginally... Like non-knockup CC is better. Which, funnily enough, kind of undoes a little bit of the Cassante bits here, right? Systems, man. Systems. Yeah, I would actually now... When Legend Tenacity got nerfed, I said we probably wouldn't start any new conversations about Tenacity versus Alacrity versus Bloodline or anything. It might be time to open those conversations. And it might be time to start looking at, is Unflinching actually fully worth it, or do I want Overgrowth? It's not like you're going to just take one source of Tenacity all the time. Sometimes you will still get like full value out of like stacking these, right? In fact, I'm probably reading way too much into this. The tangible effect with the time that I have available is just impossible to fully predict. So what instead we should do is just start keeping an ear open for some whisperings. It's like, okay, is Everfrost any better? Are some of our stun-reliant tanks a little better? Like, are we actually starting to observe a rise in win rate, like a performance feeling better, alacrity feeling better than tenacity, overgrowth feeling better than unflinching? Like, just keep your ear to the ground, because it would be really foolish to overreact to tenacity decreases before we have a chance to gain practical experience. So don't make any drastic changes to anything yet. Just put it on the watch list. Start looking for answers to those questions that I just posed. Jungle adjustments. Okay, so in current state, it is apparently I've been definitely starting to observe this, watching like LCK and stuff, playing my own games, and like feeling like why are my team, I've been jungling this season, and my team has been pushing me to play more aggressively, and I keep like just experiencing some weird things. I'm like, why are my plays working? This doesn't make sense. I've been a power farmer historically. Like, I don't know why the people I'm playing against are making these mistakes when like dying to these things, and why I'm being rewarded for spam ganking so hard. And the answer was, like, treats were kind of insane, right? So, what have we got? Gold per treat is going down by 10. So, I mean, if you get yourself into a position where you spam ganked and, like, you accumulated 3 treats, you are losing 30 gold, right? I've seen those situations happen. You just take one camp, you get an extra 30 gold. Experience for clearing a jungle camp has been increased by 5 experience per camp. Let me pull up a really old graphic that I had access to. Okay, you need 200, you need 100 experience to get to the next level. Oh wait, no, I'm trolling, isn't like, okay. 5 per camp, 30 per clear. I mean, you need 280 XP to get to 2, 380 to 3, 480 to 4, 580 to, like, oh, wait a minute, is that really how it works? Is that how XP works? Why did I never clue into that pattern? You need X 180 experience to get to level X. So that's 30 on a full? I don't know, okay. This is big. Trinkets available 1 wave sooner? That's big. That's a big deal. Ganking success. They're trying to... Upping early tower damage so that the benefits of dives also come with an appropriate level of risk. This is clearly supposed to be a 0 because the key is right next to 0. Turret's damage now starts lower. Wait, what? Hang on. Wait, what? Is this a typo? Damage is lower at level 0. Jungle Companion. Oh, we've seen the clips. We've all seen the clips. We've seen the clips of this happening. Right? Okay. Oh, okay. The junglers that are spam ganking do not care about their econ. The only one who does care about their econ is like Elise and to a degree Vi and Wukong, who actually do need to get to their 2 items if possible. Like, it would be nice for Vi to actually hit her tank item after Cleaver. Cleaver's expensive. It would be nice for Wukong to hit like a GA or something, right? The penalty for wasting your time is marginally increased. I say marginally because I don't think we really... It's such a small amount Like, it's funny, because when we look at, like, minion reductions and stuff, we can actually way more reliably calculate how much you're losing per wave, right? Jungle's a lot more complex. Okay. So, this turret's damage change is just not decipherable because they've made too many typos. This change, I think the champions that are spam ganking are just, like, fine being on lower econ, and so it's not that big a deal to them. And actually, it kind of... it does kind of harm some of the champions that are power farming too, because it's just minus gold in everything. I don't think, like, I don't think this makes, like, a big difference. I don't think that's, like, huge. Because it's plus 30 per full clear. So it's, like, at worst, the enemy jungler is getting a 15 XP lead on you if you clear half a quadrant. If you clear a quadrant and they clear a full jungle, right? And this is just funny. So the only change that actually I would predict to have very high impact is this one. I think this is a big deal. I think wards available a wave sooner is huge. I think that's actually major for deterring early ganks. You can just put up more wards, and then you have to spend more sweeps to, like, actually deal with it. Which, funnily enough, I think impacts top lane more, and that's not the place that we were actually ganking, because the counterplay to this is just get your support on an early sweeper, and then sweep again, and then the early ganks are more consistent again, and, you know? So it's actually the top laners who were not getting spam ganked who are harder to spam gank. We probably will see, like, a small shift at top level, but did any of these specific timings matter to you in the first place as an amateur player? And the answer is probably no. So we only care about this one, and if you're trying to play around bot lane, and also mid lane, it will simply be harder to find a hole in their vision because it's going to be easier for the laners to ward. Fortunately, platinum laners are clueless about where the jungler is, so you can probably still find some stuff, right? And that's it. That's really it. Now, this patch had a lot of bug fixes, right? They fixed this! They fixed the ultimate ready bug! No way! They fixed the Azir ult bug. They fixed Rise water walking. They fixed the undo thing from Biscuits and Boots. Well, so these are destroyed by Yasuo's Windwall. Fixed the bugs of champions with multiple ability icons. Use the right one in the kill feed. Wow, those are big. Fixed the interaction so Senna can now flash to reroute her W. Set a W flash. Wow. Fixed a bug where IBG's damage reduction would not occur while shielded. That is funny. That is really funny. That's a lot of bug fixes. I just have to read these very quickly. Fixed a bug that was causing Galio's passive to make support item executes prioritize lower HP enemies instead of the original target. Wow. Fixed a bug that caused jungle camps to attack Ivern. I never experienced this. That's wild. Fixed a bug that caused Misfortune's R bullet time area of effects to be misplaced if she moves during casting. Fixed a bug causing jungle companions to not properly aggro champion summons like Elisa's spiders. Fixed a bug that caused jungle monsters to sometimes not be affected by CC. I saw that one. That was funny. Fixed a bug the turret plate visual bug. What? Okay. I mean, there's some big bugs in here. That's really cool. Yeah, I heard about that one too. I just read it up there. I didn't vocalize everything. So, okay, so I'm just going to go back through here. Aurelion Sol, we're expecting him to be very powerful. Amumu, low impact, I think. Annie, actually pretty significant. Jarvan, low impact. Cassante, definitely harder to pick in Platinum. Kassadin, like, we were saying he's still going to be strong. Kale, we were saying it might matter more than I initially thought. Kane looks reasonably buffed. LeBlanc, yeah. Lee Sin solo lane stuff, like Trundle, Zach, fine. Okay, so that's the patch. There are actually some meaningful champion power level adjustments in this patch. So if a champion in your core pool for amateur got nerfed, I don't think anyone got like so dramatically nerfed that you remove them from pool. Like, you're fine. At worst, they got nerfed to change pick conditions a little bit, and it went like Sante, for example. One sec. Okay, so yeah, that's the patch. There are some power impacting changes in here for amateur, but nothing so drastic that it should remove champions from your pool. Even the worst nerfed champions are, at worst, slightly harder to pick and still completely legitimate in your pool. Or if you're playing at like platinum level and below, like some of them don't even change because they have like other output. Like even in the worst case where you're losing like a lot of damage and you're losing kill windows, most of the champions who got like heavily nerfed will provide other output to their team, and if you're good at the champion, you'll still find value, right? Don't shake up your pool dramatically off this patch. Some of the buffs are pretty significant. Like I was looking at Annie in particular. I'm looking at Kane. Really the big changes that we have to talk about and that we have to look forward are the systems. And I would not overreact to the systems either, right? Radiant Virtue, we're just going to see, like, there were a few rush conditions that we're not really going to see anymore. Umbroglaive, like, the champions who still found it legitimate to rush Umbroglaive, aren't going to care too much about this because it's just making the most unfair property of Umbroglaive more fair, and that's fine. Like, it just, having to play a slightly more honest game is not a damning property, right? Now I'm a little bit disappointed with the melee support stuff here because, like, theoretical power level I don't think is that impacted on most of these. But that being said, like, in amateur play, we were playing these anyway, and so go wild, right? We're fine. We were left with some questions, like, honestly, just the big change of the patch. The one that everybody has to care about, the one that everybody has to take note of, is Stealth Ward Trinket cooldown. That's the big one that actually changes strategy. That's the one, like, that is the change where if you go to your amateur team and say, we need to practice playing around this new patch, this is the thing that you should prioritize. And then ask yourself some questions around, like, tenacity, like, keep your ear to the ground on certain forms of CC and see if they're buffed and all of that. Yeah, but that is the patch. It will be impactful to the game, especially with this guy showing up. It will be impactful to the game, but I don't want you to overreact to any individual change here, because I don't think any individual change throughout the entire patch is worth overreacting to. That's pretty much it. Guys, I am in recovery mode from editing hell, so I'm not going to keep streaming for too long. I needed just something short and, like, some easy task. I'm not going to get this video out soon. Like, if you guys want to watch the rundown again, just you have to come to the Twitch VOD. I don't want to push myself to edit it down when I'm supposed to be recovering from my last editing session, right? But I'm down to just chill for a little bit. Do you guys have any, like, final questions? Any other conversation? I really enjoyed, Regdor, if you're still here, I really enjoyed our conversation about range supports. Hailfire, I really appreciate you, like, helping me out with some of the early stuff. Right. Yeah. Oh, I need to go, well, the big thing is I need to go easy after the Aurelion Sol video. Oh, speaking of, ding, 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 ding. I put a lot of work into this. I can't believe I got it out. So, I can't believe I got it out in time. So in case somebody here has not seen it just yet, I'm very proud of it. I'm always proud of day one videos. Like, even I watched my Cassante one back. And it's shocking, like, how accurate I am assuming Cassante was balanced. Because Cassante wasn't balanced, I was a little bit wrong, but now that he is, I think I'm dead on. Like, look at my map. Yeah, that's what I remember a long time ago. I was, like, very upfront with what I did and didn't know in a day one, and all the comments, like, actually reacted to that. They're like, wow, I love that. I love that. I appreciate it. I think it does make a huge difference for your credibility if you just say what you don't know, right? And so that's what I try to do in these patch rundowns, too. I, like, say to you guys, like, oh, I can't really predict this one. This one's hard. So here are my questions. So, yeah, we had some problems. It made it hard. It did make it hard. And I didn't get to answer everything. I feel reasonably confident about the matchups and stuff, but, like, I don't think I got everything, for sure. It's good. It's good. I like it. I'm proud. I think I did a good job. Good job, me. Going forward, I think I'm going to try to make some, like, very short form day ones for mid-scopes. Because I haven't been doing that before. And I think it's probably worth doing, like, a quick blurb on mid-scopes. We might have to do Milio already. Like, his teaser's out. We might have to do a new support very shortly after Acel, which is kind of funny. They can get messy. Who was, like, the messiest one? Some of them are pretty stable. Yeah. Give me a sec. I want to find is. Come on. Yeah, he's still alive. Okay, perfect. Yeah, CGU. That's not a mid scope. That was not. For the short period, he was proccing Hydra. Okay. So I'm trying to settle back into my routine now, and you should probably see me. I mean, we might have some morning streams come back for climbing. We're definitely seeing lore coming back. Legends of Runeterra, the patch just dropped, so I'm ready to continue my climb to Masters in that game. And I'll probably be live tomorrow on that. The intention is that streams become a little more regular again, because I'm out of editing hell. And I have some studies that I need to do. I've decided that I get really stressed out when my intention is to stream ranked with no purpose in the evening. And so if I'm playing League of Legends in the evening and it is a scheduled stream, you're probably going to see me doing, like, a specific research project, like, in-game. If you see me in the morning, it's probably just climbing because I felt like it, and because I felt like it, I happen to be live, you know? So I'm going to come back to the land of the living. I finally am going to have some time to, like, go back to my itemization studies. I get to finally wrap up standard. I know, like, some of you with access to my OneNote have been poking me about, like, Bruiser stuff. It's like, hey, update it, update Bruiser. Like, like, I know I'm not there yet. I have to do the marksman stuff, right? So I'm excited to return back to those studies a bit. That's my plan. Yeah, okay, so we have a special event going on. Is there more than just you? A little bit. Yeah. The homie, my lore coach, Darian, good friend of the stream, good friend of the server, he's actually live right now. He is never live. I've not seen him stream in a very, very long time. And so he's screwing around with the new Legends of Runeterra patch, and maybe I can learn a thing or two just watching right now, to prepare myself for tomorrow. So we'll see that. Thank you so much for being here, everybody. Don't forget to love yourselves, respect each other, and don't feel bad about poking and prodding me, because I do think it's funny, and I do like the conversations. I'm always going to be upfront with what I do and don't have time for, so just ask. No issue, right? I'll see you all later, guys. Take care. Oh, wait a minute. I just fucking... Oh, no, I just rated the wrong... Wait, guys, are you still here? Are you still here? Oh, no. I just botched my raid. I wrote Darwin lol absentmindedly. And now I just... Oh, no. I fucked up. No. I blundered. Sorry, guys. Sorry. We're gonna try. Okay, my bad. Damn it! I ruined Darian's life. Okay, bye, everyone.